Hello everyone! Welcome back to the Middle School GSA. It's been so long since we've actually recorded, but here we are.
What are you talking about? We recorded last week.
Yeah, totally.
The Manosphere.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. That's exactly what happened, actually. Yeah, and I definitely haven't been moving and trying to get a new job and constantly exhausted and never in a fit mental state to talk about politics for 2 hours.
Have you heard back from that job interview? Or that job that you interviewed?
Yes.
Did you?
I am hired.
Congratulations. That's great news.
Yes, $19.50 an hour.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's sad that I have to go ooh at that, but that is good.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Anything else new in your
Absolutely.
life?
I just watched, I finally stopped putting off watching The Last of Us, the HBO show.
Oh, yeah.
And I fucking loved it.
Cool.
I thought it was great.
I'm happy for you. Happy you were able to enjoy that.
You didn't like it?
No, I didn't watch it. I actually don't care. You see, I do this thing where my default is to hate something if I don't have an opinion on it. Like, my default is just to like roll my eyes and be like, oh yeah, that stupid thing. Yeah. That's how I pretty much responded to all media up until the past couple of years of my life.
Yeah, we can tell. We can tell.
I don't know. It's this weird, like, performative rebellion that I used to put up. I don't really do it I do it now with, like, some amount of self-awareness. Like, I do it jokingly, but people don't realize that I'm joking. People think I'm just really ignorant and hateful. I don't have hate in my heart for the majority of media, but I just don't care. And that's something that people really get mad at me for. But, like, I am very apathetic when it comes to pop culture these days. I just have a very hard time getting myself invested. Even if I know, like, objectively, like, all my friends love this show, I'm probably going to love it if I push myself enough to watch it. But it's like, I just don't have the energy.
I understand that. I will say, I understood the Pedro Pascal craze before watching the show, but now I understand it. Truly. The brain rot is... Now I'm going to go back and watch through his entire portfolio, everything he's ever acted in.
Wow.
Yeah. Great, extremely versatile actor and super talented. And you know what? Next time my dad implies or tries to imply that maybe he wasn't really responsible for traumatizing me, I'm just going to tell him about my intense attraction to Joel from The Last of Us, which is not something that someone with a perfectly healthy relationship with their father would feel. But here we are.
So the fatherless allegations do have some truth to them after all.
Oh, they do have some truth. They do.
Okay.
My dad is like, he's a good dude. But the thing is, growing up, he just treated me like his 5-year-old, like one of his bros.
Yeah.
And yeah, and just kind of weird relationship. I love the guy, but
There's a lot of parents out there that do that. That's like one of the worst ways to raise a child. I would rather have a super strict parent than that, like if I could do my life over again.
Yeah, and he has a master's degree in political science. And he's also he's where I got my autism from. So he'd just ironically be like, I'm going to destroy my 8-year-old in a debate right now. Just use all of my skills from my entire academic career and weaponize them against my child right now and make them feel like the most stupid person in existence every single day. And
now
that's
parenting that I can get behind. Debate bro parenting.
See, oh man. Imagine fucking... See, I don't even know how to... it's also an issue that whenever I would try to complain about something, like a real serious social issue, he would immediately start playing devil's advocate without telling me. So I'd be like absolutely horrified that apparently my father thinks it's okay for disabled people to be paid below minimum wage, but the whole time he was really just playing devil's advocate, trying to make me think about things and how to argue against them, but I would just be appalled the entire time, just horrified.
Remember when humanity was capable of understanding the concept of a devil's advocate argument?
Mm-hmm.
Remember back when, like, questioning the logical foundation of your political base, and like how actively they're able to weaponize their rhetoric against the opposition wasn't immediately interpreted as defense of the opposition, in spite of everything you have to say. That was amazing.
I think it has to do with setting. Like, it's not always appropriate, like, when a person of color is telling the class, the high school class, about some deeply traumatic part of their life, and then the white guy with a buzz cut who comes to a school every day in a suit is just like, well, let me play the devil's advocate here. Like, it's about people having no fucking idea what context is appropriate.
I think that is a problem, but I also like truly think that there are a lot of people who just refuse to question the logical foundation of their own base, and by playing devil's advocate, you are doing that, and you are just offending a lot of people.
It's a super great intellectual exercise that's really important for anyone who wants to be talking about politics, needs to engage in. Like, you need to know what the opposition's arguments against you are so that you're prepared to counter them. Otherwise, you end up in situations where you end up, like, going into a debate with Ben Shapiro, having no fucking idea what he actually believes, just that he doesn't like trans people or something. And then you're able to say, oh, well, I know that this is morally correct, which it is, but then you're not able to explain why and actually combat his arguments, and then you get the fucking triggered liberal destroyed in debate compilations.
Yeah, and also just generally, like, if somebody says something bad about a bad person, and you're like, well, that's not exactly true, then you're immediately defending that person.
It's so silly. I don't understand it. Like, and every once in a while, I like to think that my side is generally correct about most things, but then it's kind of rampant, where I see people all over the place on the internet using these disingenuous arguments, or arguments that aren't really based in truth, and it's like, it's okay, the other side is wrong. You can just argue with what they actually believe and still be right. You don't have to make shit up about what they believe in order to be right. It is deeply frustrating, and it is just absolutely shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, it's pathetic. And I think Tankies have caused irreparable damage, because fucking Tankies are the biggest woke scolds.
Fucking Tankies.
They're the biggest woke scolds, SJWs,
Absolutely.
performative activists, whatever we're calling them now. They're the biggest, like, people with no logic who are just, like, rampantly, like, screaming at people. Like, any, like, hate thread, any, like super bad, like, hate thread or, like, thing, like, telling you that, like, everybody who uses this word is, like, a terrible person, when it's, like, all obviously bullshit. It's all Tankies, and people don't even know what Tankies are. So they just, like, follow them. Somebody's like, oh, yes, Marxist-Leninist 35, or Maoist. These, like, Maoist and Leninist people, they're like, yeah, you know, these, I don't know who the fuck a Mao or a Lenin is, but they have a really good point here about how anyone who says Ben Shapiro isn't a TERF is secretly transphobic. I don't know, dude. It's like too many layers to this.
I remember, I I think I may have mentioned something along these lines before, but I like to seek out, not quite to the degree that you do, Demi, but I seek out people who disagree with me to argue with them on the internet. And one of the times I did this, I joined a leftist unity group on Facebook, which was supposed to be like Tankies and Ancoms Unite. And in there I was like, you know, guys, I think that voting for Biden might be good because Trump rolled back civil rights protections for queer people, so now we can legally be denied medical care for being queer, and was just immediately called a shit lib, and, you know, how dare you say anything about harm reduction.
It's because fucking Marxists, it's because like these like pseudo-intellectual Marxists are all like middle-class cisgendered heterosexual white people who think they're playing like 7D chess and they have like everything all figured out for all minority groups, when in reality they have like no real world experience to account for it, nor do they care to listen to your real experience. They might retweet an infographic about listening to the voices of people of color, but they do not actually value that at all. They 100% believe in the gatekeeping of information. This is all bourgeois bullshit. Like, all of it. And it's so funny that they act like they're at the forefront of the revolution, or that, oh, you know, we're the warriors of this class struggle, when they're not at all.
Yeah.
We have a lot to talk about today, and one of those things would be comments. So the last episode in the Manosphere, we didn't read comments for some stupid, ridiculous reason. I don't know why. We didn't read comments. So we're going to read the comments from the Forced Diversity episode, which came out over a month ago now.
Uh-huh.
And then we'll read the Manosphere comments. So on Forced Diversity, we have a comment from Spice Chai, who is Squeebo, says, Middle School SA is run by Mulimed and Legal Bueller. Cool. Hilarious. David Fern says, Demi yelling at people was the best part of the episode. We did read these.
Did we?
I think we did.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure we read the. Wait. No, we read these when on the scrapped episode.
Oh,
so nobody
shit.
heard us. Okay, yeah. That's what happened. We did scrap an episode, by the way, guys. You'll never know. You will never know what got scrapped. But we had a pretty wild episode that you're never going to hear.
Yep.
Real Merrick, who used to be Crystal Wesson, says, hey, yo, I had no time to listen and answer to the last episode. So, oh my God. Now we're talking about 2 episodes ago. Ferris, you asked me about Germany, why it was such a utopia, but the people are still grumpy. It is an interesting question. First of all, it depends on where you live. Northern Germany people are really shy and don't like to be talked to. I personally hate it when someone approaches me in a store or in the street, but in Southern Germany, that is really normal. I always feel like an alien when I visit my friends in Karlsruhe. I apologize, I cannot read this. Karlsruhe. There's definitely a syllable in there that is not accounted for in the English alphabet, because people just talk to you. I feel like people are more genuine how they feel and don't pretend to be happy when they are not. Store workers, for example, look neutral, which can feel like they are grumpy to foreigners, I think. But there are definitely really grumpy arseholes who are resentful. I think it's because of World War II. I don't know, to be honest. But the younger generation is definitely more open and nicer. Wow. Story of my life. Story of everyone's life. You mean to tell me that younger people are more friendly?
Wow.
That's crazy.
I'd like to one day live in Germany. It's
really?
just a nice place to live, yeah.
I don't think I'm ever going to move out of this state. I think I'm going to die in Wisconsin.
That's terrible. Don't do that to yourself.
Unless I'm in a situation where, like, everyone I love and care about is no longer in my life, then maybe I'll move. But as long as like my connections are still here, like my very close friends, I don't have any reason to leave. I don't really care.
I
Anyways.
guess.
I don't really hate Wisconsin though. I fucking hate the winter. But I also hate the summer. I'd probably rather deal with winter because I can wear outfits that I like. Like I can actually do fashion a teeny tiny bit because I'm not just going to sweat to death. Yeah. Thank you for the comment. Thank you for clarifying that. Merrick it is now, I guess. Marik. Is it Merrick? Marek? I'm going to say Merrick for now.
That's probably Merrick.
Unless I'm corrected. Insight Zoidberg. Oh, great. Insight Zoidberg commented again. And I'm sure everything she has to say is completely genuine without a hint of insincerity. Great episode. Enjoyed hearing Ferris's queer backstory. Put in a good word for me. By the way, my good friend Kai would like to guest on the show, and he is a member of the LGBT IQCAPGNGFNBA plus community. I figured he would be a fitting guest for the show. Put in a good word for me. Great episode. Enjoyed hearing Demigloom's queer backstory, and it's the same thing. And then it's just a bunch of different names. Enjoyed hearing Peter's queer backstory. Enjoyed hearing Kai's queer backstory. By the way, my good friend Insight. Okay, we're not doing this. I'm not enabling this behavior. Insight, you were banned from listening to this show forever. No more comments. Pepito says, welcome to the Brownie Initiation Podcast. Heh heh heh. Pepito is probably aware of the Brownie Initiation Podcast, given that they're a Demi and the Goons fan, or so it seems. Don't listen to it. I probably said bad takes on there. I probably defended capitalism or something. I don't know. I had a liberal arc for a while before I was radicalized. All right, so those are all the comments on the forced diversity episode. We appreciate each and every comment. Still had more more comments than likes. If you're gonna comment how much you love the episode, leave a like. Just do it. Just smash the like button. And subscribe too. We have 35 subscribers. Come on now. Oh, we also posted a clip. Should we read the comments for that too?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Into the Manosphere. Merrick says congrats on the HRT. Thank you very much. For our middle school GSA class that we sell, they said they should call it HRT Verd University. I think that's pretty good.
Yes.
Are you crying? Are you okay?
No, I'm fine.
You were just dead silent for a second, and then you were just yeah, it's pretty good. I was like, Jesus Christ.
I'm fine. I'm right here.
Pepito says, is title based on Adventure Time? No, I named it Into the Manosphere, like Into the Spider-Verse. I don't know what the Adventure Time reference would be. I'm not an Adventure Time fan.
And I'm so fucking excited to see the new Spider-Verse movie.
I've been trying to pirate it all day, but I can't find a good one.
I tried to pirate it yesterday and failed miserably. Ended up I made a new friend who was horrified that I hadn't seen Ghost Rider.
Ghost Rider?
I watched Ghost
The one with
Nicolas Cage? So I watched Ghost Rider. Yes. And it was so good.
Was it actually good?
No, it was terrible. It was
fucking
produced by the same person who produced Morbius.
The fucking Ghost Rider, that movie was just played 24/7 on the Sci-Fi Channel for 10 years. If you go on Sci-Fi, literally past 7 p.m., it was either Hellboy or Ghost Rider. Just on repeat, just all night long.
Yeah.
Because that's the only film they had the rights to.
It was truly awful. And part of the plot of Ghost Rider is that this guy sells his soul to cure his dad's cancer, and then there's a twist and his dad dies anyways. I feel like Nicolas Cage sold his soul to the devil for his career. I just cannot imagine how he got into the position that he's in without something like that. It's the same shit with Weezer. It has to be. It has to be the devil.
What? Weezer's good.
Weezer, they have no musical talent.
What are you talking about?
They have zero technical skill. All of their songs have... It's... Truly, they... Listen closer.
They're very standard.
Really,
it's all like very simple power chords, and they just like add like arpeggios and rearrange them from there. But it's good.
It's good. It's good, but it's bad, and we can acknowledge that. But Nicolas Cage, like the whole
it's not
movie,
bad. Simplicity isn't bad. That's not a problem necessarily.
It's just it gets boring. But Weezer has like this weird charisma and really great songwriting, and that is what makes Weezer so great. But Nicolas Cage is built like a fucking chimp, with a very low body fat percent, and his neck sticks out at a right angle, and apparently Johnny Depp was the first pick for that role.
Oh my god. Fuck Johnny
every
Depp
single
too.
time,
Jesus Christ.
Fuck Johnny Depp. That's we can talk about that. That's feminism.
Oh god. No. Let's not bring up Johnny Depp in that conversation. I don't want to.
Yeah, sure. That's fine. I prefer to forget that he exists. But Nicolas Cage, every time I see him in a movie, I am just fucking perplexed. I have no fucking idea how this man got into these A-list positions without selling his soul to the devil. It's the only logical conclusion I can come to, honestly.
Yeah. He also, I mean, he probably did sell his soul, because if you look at his face, he just, like, seems to have, like, no, like, real human emotion whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, people say, like, Mark Zuckerberg is a robot. I think Mark Zuckerberg is, like a poor experiment to, like, imitate humanity. Like, it's very obvious. Nicolas Cage is,
Everyone says that about Mark Zuckerberg. I think he's just autistic. I think people need to stop being mean to him about that.
I think he's a billionaire, so I don't care.
Yeah. But make fun of him for being a billionaire, not being autistic.
Pardon my communism. Nicolas Cage looks like he has like no human emotion. He feels like a Terminator level cyborg.
I definitely feel like there's some persistent depressive disorder. He hasn't felt real joy for at least 20 years. He's just chugging along anyway, though.
Yeah, it's whatever. Do what you gotta do, I guess. We do have more comments. We're like, how long are we in? We're like 30 minutes in, Jesus.
30 minutes, yeah.
Okay. Must Know 3 says, a dude who thinks that being on a cuck's Discord is somewhat equivalent to success.
What?
And a dude who thinks that being on a cuck's Discord is somewhat equivalent to success, and an utterly confused, most likely suffering from mental illnesses, or mental issues snowflake, get together to talk about masculinity of all topics. What could go wrong?
Oh wait, is this a new hater? I hadn't
Are they
checked.
hating us, or are they hating... Are they talking about Andrew Tate?
They're hating us. There was a different hater, though, who I had a conversation with.
We're going to read that soon.
I haven't checked up on that thread.
Yeah, Must Know 3, 4 days ago says, incomprehensible comment. Yeah. Next comment. Pepito says, animals are cute, but they eat other animals too. That's exactly the depressing reality I was talking about. Like, there's nothing I can do to stop animals from just constantly experiencing torture and suffering. This extends to insects, fish, fucking everything. Like, it's so sad. Have you seen, like, those ocean documentaries? Could you imagine the horrifying reality that living life as a fish in the deep sea would be? Like, you can't walk outside of your house. You just get munched immediately. Like, you are nothing more than a walking statistic. And that statistic is a 99% chance that you will die in the next day.
And you're gonna get eaten by, like, an actual eldritch abomination, of all things.
Yeah. How dishonorable, man. It's so sad. It's so sad.
Dishonorable.
Do you have this kind of sympathy for fish?
Um,
Or do you just like not really connect with that like area of life?
See, it's weird. I absolutely love fish, but I do have less empathy for fish than I do for other animals. But like I've had pet fish before that had huge personalities that were very charismatic, would like look you in the eyes, and do all these silly little things. And I love those fish, and I'm gonna have more fish soon, and I'm gonna have a shrimp tank, and I'm gonna be so happy. Just like that guy on 4chan who got a shrimp tank and it fixed all of his problems in his life.
Do you feel like you love fish in the same way you love plants?
I love fish more than I love plants, but it is similar. We can see this is an entirely different conversation. I have justifications for why I eat fish.
I don't have justifications for why I eat anything that I eat. It's an abomination. I cry as I devour hundreds of chicken nuggets. That's just my reality right now.
Oh man. Okay, we are both the beta soy people that these commenters say we are.
Okay.
The allegations are true.
Okay, now Traveler Me 2401 says at 26, folks, rent is high in the UK. That's men's issues for you, gents. According to this confused, zero life experience kid who doesn't know her up from her down and her black from her white. Planetary level facepalm. Felonious Ferris replies, feel free to give an example that you feel is better. None of this is scripted, so I just pulled the first thing I remember him mentioning in an interview off of the shelf in the back of my head. I'll admit it's pretty dusty back there. LMAO, you should have defended yourself. That is a legitimate grievance for a lot of people, including men.
This is true, yes.
Traveler Me 2401 says, appreciate the honesty. Talk to real people. Listen to real problems in real life. Stop talking whatever pre-packaged worldview presented in mainstream media at face value and believing everything they tell you. You know it's wrong. And then you said, feel free to point me in what you believe to be the right direction. They said, lol, ... If inviting you to actually use your brain, think, and live in reality is me pushing you in some nefarious direction, like what you're trying to make it sound, then there you go. Follow my direction and think what I tell you to think. Lol. This is like...
What was I trying to make it sound like? I just want, like, if he doesn't think I should trust the mainstream media, if I'm entirely wrong about what men's issues are, where the fuck do I find out about it? That's what I was asking.
I think this is an
I was asking him to give me a source for what he believes. And yeah, you're totally right. Rent being high is an issue for men. That is a stressor that is just weighing on our entire generation that's struggling to be independent from their parents. And for the most part, it's futile without 15 roommates in a fucking 100 square foot closet.
See, that's the lifestyle I want, though. I'm all for the Fight Club model of housing.
And literally this was something that he said. I watched a Piers Morgan interview with Andrew Tate, and that was one of the first things that he started talking about. And that is an example of real life grievances that are extremely valid to have. But then Andrew Tate turns it around and says, it's because women. It's because #MeToo movement.
Yeah, for full context, it wasn't Felonious Ferris being like, men's lives are so hard, look at rent prices. It was Felonious Ferris responding to Andrew Tate, attributing males' grievances related to rent prices being high in the UK. Him attributing that to Me Too and feminism and yada yada yada. And Felonious Ferris was responding with that, saying, yes, high rent is a legitimate grievance, but you can't attribute it to those things. It was not us being men's rights activists, which I cannot make clear enough.
It wasn't like he was attributing it to feminism. He was attributing it to this vague cultural decline of Western civilization. Like, everything is going to shit. And, of course, he also thinks that feminism and #MeToo is part of that cultural decline.
He thinks that's, like, the root of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he has this, like, fucking very, in my opinion, like, bigoted understanding of, like, Islam, where I think he just saw, he just saw Islam and was like, ooh, 3 wives that have to
women
cover
aren't
their
allowed
faces.
to drive here.
Yeah. This is what Islam is about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's silly and goofy. And I think it's highly predatory.
I actually left a comment on this that got taken down by YouTube.
Oh, holy shit.
Felonious Ferris was being too nice to this guy who had no interest in engaging in civil discourse. And I simply left the comment. This was not by any means an insult. It was just an acknowledgement of a basic reality. All I said was, I wouldn't care if you died. And that got taken down by YouTube. The Matrix got me.
God.
We're not allowed to share our opinions anymore. I was just stating a simple fact, like if this person
literally
did
1984.
Die, I don't know this person. People die every day. Like, I wouldn't care if they died, right? I don't think
literally
that's unfair to say.
Yeah,
literally 1984.
Literally 1984.
User IGV01PQ4D says, "Yay, new MSGSA. It's been too long." I love seeing our silent fans finally leave comments.
Yes.
I love the validation of the fact that there are more people listening than, like, the 3 people that leave a comment on every episode.
Mm-hmm. Every single time someone leaves a comment, even if it's to be a hater, actually, I love haters. Haters, please comment. I love you.
Oh, me too.
I'll
Absolutely.
give you a little kiss. Mwah. Yeah. It's and just supportive commenters. So much joy it brings me to hear from everyone.
Yeah. Do you want to read the comments for the "Should Trans People Arm Themselves" clip that got posted?
Yeah. Can you send me the link to it?
Sure. There you go. A lot of these comments, maybe, I don't know about a lot on the YouTube, but a lot of people saw I promoted this video in a lot of Discord servers with self-promo chats, and a lot of them just immediately assumed that we were arguing for trans people arming themselves, and they were like, "You guys are disgusting. You want to put guns in the hands of these groomers that are taking control?" And I didn't actually watch the clip. And a few people in the comments here didn't actually watch the clip. Do you have it pulled up?
Yes, I do.
All right. Sort by newest and scroll to the bottom.
Yes. My God, 25 comments. Holy shit.
We don't have to respond to all of them. We can just speed through some of them. Because a lot of them are the same.
If trans people need to kill themselves, they'll need a gun. I don't know why I'm still subbed to this crap. Insignificant. Wow, that was a bad take and your arguments would fall apart in the slightest bit of scrutiny. Yeah, it's cringe. We're not actually middle schoolers. That's what Demigloom said to it. Someone said that we were middle schoolers. Give mentally ill, extremely thin-skinned people guns. Fantastic idea. American citizens have the right to arm themselves. Why emphasize trans people? Absolutely not. The last one we see with a gun was wild. This is Fed work for real. This is going to result in a lot more trans folks hurting themselves. Shame on you, reported.
They got reported. They reported us for saying trans people shouldn't buy guns, but they didn't realize that and said they shouldn't. Or were they saying? Or were they arguing that trans people are, like, in the long term going to hurt themselves more if they don't have guns? Was that their argument?
I don't know. I'll give you a free trip to anywhere in the Middle East, all expenses paid, if you want to see what 65% of the world thinks about you people.
What do you mean by you people? Curious.
What do you mean by you people? Yeah. They...
Surely they're not referring to us because we're trans, right?
Yeah. Someone says, yes, heart, white flag, transgender, or, like, gender diverse emoji. You're telling me the United States is a real place? In Europe we would never have this problem. Yeah,
See,
there's a
and I
bunch
don't
of
know if,
Demigloom replies.
when they say, in
And
Europe we would never have this problem, I don't know if they're saying Europe doesn't have the woke gender problem or Europe doesn't have the gun problem. One of those is based and one of those isn't.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, all these most of these comments are just brain dead, and they didn't even actually watch the video. Everyone decided to have an opinion on us before they watched the video. But essentially, the main sentiment from people who replied on Reddit, Twitter, social media, and Discord was that we were feds. I don't think it's. I think it's very cringe that leftists are all of a sudden like super pro-gun, and it's like, oh, it's fed behavior. It's like, listen, we just know who we're up against. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean we're on their side.
You're free to look through the Discord servers that I'm in. Thug Shaker Central is not one of them. I am not a fed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how do I prove to them that I'm not a fed?
I don't think they actually think we're feds. I think they're just calling it fed behavior.
Uh-huh.
I don't think we engage in fed behavior. I think fed behavior just means like things that we disagree with for these people.
Yeah.
And yes, I said you people. I'm talking about Marxists. I don't like Marxists.
Mm-hmm. I do. See, I've met some good Marxists. I have some family members who are good Marxists. I have
they're out there.
I have an aunt that like went to Cuba to go work in fields with people. Like that's my family.
I think there's great Marxists out there, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's good to like gatekeep an entire realm of thought behind like one person's literature. Like people are like, oh, you believe in these things, therefore you're a Marxist. And what is a Marxist? A Marxist is a follower of the teachings of Karl Marx. That's a very like religious almost kind of way of thinking that I don't really like agree with.
Which is super wrong. Yeah, it's just immediately, and then you'll see people like, this is revisionist. This isn't what Marx actually said, and it's like, you don't think that we should fucking rethink shit as time goes on?
Revisionism is like pretending that someone didn't believe in something. Like revisionism is like pretending that Marx like was anti-gun, or like pretending that Marx wasn't pro-gun and just like ignoring that. What we do,
but it was within a context where it was like, this isn't what this. You aren't a real Marxist. You can't say that you're a Marxist because this isn't what Marx said.
Yeah,
and it's silly.
Which is exactly why I don't identify as a Marxist. There's a lot of Marxist thought that there's a lot of like Marxist writing that I strongly agree with and will follow to the grave. And there's also a lot of things that he said that were bad. I'm not going to define my ideology based on the teachings of a single human being. No human is perfect.
Yep.
And socialism,
that's exactly how I feel.
And Marx, not to discredit the guy, but like he very sincerely, I think if you were to ask him himself, he would tell you, and he said this in like the Communist Manifesto, the ideas that he like documents and advocates for are not ideas that he invented. Like Marx didn't come up with the concept of egalitarianism. He throughout all of his literature, he cites many historical examples of things that he thinks were like good solutions to the natural like class conflicts that take place in a capitalist society. I don't think Marx would appreciate the like religious like cult like following that he's developed.
Yeah. Yep. It's
but
never a good thing.
He also wouldn't approve of his Jewish following, so there's that too. Anyways, we've talked a lot, and we haven't even met our topic yet. So, what do we call this? I don't know. We'll figure out what to call it after we talk about the topic, unless you have an idea.
Nah.
Essentially, we're going to talk about feminism, our personal experience with feminism, our personal relationship feminism. Are we feminists? I don't know. What is a feminist? How would you describe feminism, Felonious Ferris?
Um, I'd say that it's someone um, who believes in gender equality, who does not believe that a entirely patriarchal system is positive. Um, and that's just generally a lot of the time it's more specifically about women's issues, um, talking about the equalization of women and men with the bettering of women in mind, but it's really important to remember that feminism also, real feminism also benefits men.
I would agree with that. I think the simplest way, maybe not the best way, but the simplest way to define feminism as resistance to patriarchy. I think feminism can only exist in a patriarchy. If we did live in like a perfect society, like where men and women were completely equal and nobody was discriminated against, persecuted, marginalized, etc., victimized on the basis of their gender, um, or had their life dictated on the basis of their gender or sex, there would be no need for feminism. So I think
Yeah.
feminism describes the resistance to an existing patriarchy or an upcoming patriarchy or hypothetical patriarchy, whatever, in whatever realm this patriarchy exists, whether in theory or practice, feminism is the resistance of that. Um, the word like feminism, like femininism, is sometimes interpreted as like the of or relating to femininity, like being pro femininity, which I would
Hmm.
disagree with that definition. There are a lot of feminists throughout history who were, uh, to say, to put it bluntly, misandrist, very bitter and hateful towards men as a concept, and believed that women were superior. They believed in the feminization of society and were pro femininity and anti masculinity. But I don't think that's what feminism means. I don't think that's what
Yeah.
feminism is. I believe feminism, the true definition of the word, is simply resistance to patriarchy. And I believe that resistance to patriarchy would entail the equality of all genders. So essentially,
Yes.
yeah, equality for all genders is like the goal. Um, Feminism kind of has a rocky, complicated history, particularly in America. Well, not even particularly in America. It's even more complicated once we go international. But
Hmm.
feminism in America itself is a very difficult concept to like document. The first people to call themselves feminists is like a widely debated topic. What is and isn't feminism, or like what feminism is like the definitive feminism of a time period, or like what the consensus of a feminist movement is on a particular issue. Is it's all a complicated thing. But I do have some simple notes for some things that I already knew, some things that I learned recently, most things that learned more recently. Like I had a very simple understanding of the history of feminism, but essentially feminism has can be like separated into waves. Um Different just time periods have had different like feminist activity with different emphasis on different things, different ideological standings. Just a lot. There's a lot of diversity, and there's no like one idea that all feminists have believed in or did believe in during a certain time period or during a certain wave. It's just like if we're going to speak to the consensus and relevant or most relevant activity that took place within a feminist movement during a specific wave, this is what we would point to. So, first wave feminism took place in the 19th and early 20th century, and basically it did have it did go hand in hand with the abolitionist movement, although abolitionism was a very divisive topic, as you could guess. There were feminists within there were feminist slave owners, and there were also feminist slaves. You know, like feminism was an ideology that existed among all kinds of people back then. But generally, if we're going to trace back like feminism as we know it and its roots, we can look to the abolitionist movement, the this general criticism of, you know, authoritarianism, this idea that people deserve freedom and that these arbitrary characteristics like race, ethnicity, gender, sex are things that shouldn't define our rights. Rights shouldn't be connected to those things. And women at the time were expected to be essentially accessories, you know, even worse than what a conservative nowadays would call their perfect trad wife. They were essentially, not to compare them to slaves, because they were, I think, white women were much better off than slaves at the time. But they really were. They didn't have a whole lot of agency. They stayed at home and were essentially just servants to their husbands. And their entire existence revolved around the birthing of children, you know, the taking care of children. And essentially they were just man factories, you know. There were men, the important folks, and the women who existed to sustain the existence of men. And a lot of women, surprise, surprise, weren't big fans of being completely dehumanized. So a lot of women, and I don't have names in specific literature for a lot of these notes, but the general sentiment started to grow among women that they wanted to be, you know, individual human beings, make their own choices, live their own day-to-day lives. And they wanted to vote. How audacious of them. Jesus Christ. You know, I bet there are hundreds of feminists in like the year 1901, or hundreds of like men in 1901 who were like, yeah, I was all for this feminism thing until they started wanting to vote and all that. That was just too far for me. You'll see this time and time again.
And there were even suffragettes and old feminists that like just wanted to vote, and then were like, oh yeah, and women belong in the kitchen. It's really complicated. There were a lot of different schools of thought happening all at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, they wanted, the biggest things were they wanted to vote and have jobs. The voting and jobs came a little bit later. It started more as just a general criticism and hostility towards their obligation to fulfill a motherly, like a very traditional motherly role without any freedom or agency whatsoever. And later on, as that sentiment became more popular, it started to look politically attainable for women to start having jobs and like careers, and also vote and just participate in society as the humans that they are.
And I do think that it's also worth mentioning that a lot of it was originally inspired because of domestic violence. You know, if you're not allowed to have a job, not allowed to have your own bank account, what are you supposed to do when your husband, who your entire life is tied to, starts beating you? Supposed to run away? Well, with what money? You gonna live on the streets? That's not gonna be great. And a lot of it was just women wanting to exist without being harmed by their romantic partners.
And it was completely legal to beat the living fuck out of your wife until the 1920s, which was, what, 100 years ago now? Yeah, it's the 2020s. Yeah. Barely. So, like people, there are people, like when I was a baby, there were people who were alive when it was legal to beat the shit out of your wife.
Mm-hmm.
Probably very, very old people who were born right around the time, but, you know, just for a perspective, like it really wasn't that long ago. It was like a person ago, like one lifetime ago.
Oh yeah, people absolutely forget that this is relatively recent history, and a lot of women's liberation movements across the world. There was a famous woman, oh god, now I'm gonna forget everything about her. I believe do not quote me on this, she was Italian. And she sold perfumes. And she would also give women who were being abused by their husbands cyanide to poison them with. And
to poison their husbands? Or to kill themselves?
Yes, to poison their husbands.
Okay.
And
so I thought this was going
men,
a different direction.
Like 600 men died from the cyanide she was giving out. Super based, mega based. Yeah.
Pretty cool, but like
a lot of it was
in that
just
society, where did
escaping violence.
Where did the women go after their husbands were killed? What did they do?
They'd just be able to continue to live in their husband's estate or wherever they were living. They could continue to be a widow, never remarry.
Maybe America was great at one point. I want a world where you can kill your husband and just, well, I mean, I guess we still... Why am I pretending that this is exclusive to that time? You could still do that.
Yeah.
You still 100% do that. Yeah.
This was in Europe, though. But this very famous instance of this woman who poisoned 600 men with cyanide.
That's the thing, is a lot of the huge feminist activity took place in Europe, like way more so than the US. Like they had shit figured out way before we did, and they had a much more active following. But I don't know shit about European history, so I have like no context for all of these events. They'd be like, during the time of this, this, and this, feminist activity was like, I don't know what those things are. So I really was only able to talk about the American stuff in my notes.
Oh god, the US education system.
They just don't like.
We don't even know shit about US history.
Not really,
much
no.
less the history of other countries.
I learned all my US history from like YouTube and Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Verifiable sources,
anyway.
By the way. I'm not watching like alternative history channels and shit. Second wave feminism started in like the 1960s, and essentially it went from more so a school of thought related to like, you know, it went more from theory to practice, and they essentially just wanted to be legally recognized as like normal human beings. And it was in second wave feminism that women really started to get audacious with their own humanity. It was all about the legislation. They wanted to legalize no-fault divorce, which, by the way, no-fault divorce is a woman has the right to divorce her husband without like proving to a court that she was abused necessarily by a legal definition. And that was only legalized like federally or in all states in 2010. So up until 2010, there were still women out there who legally could not be divorced from their husbands because their husbands didn't consent to their divorce, which is absolutely atrocious. That is so many things. There's so many adjectives, so many demonetizable adjectives I could use to describe the experience of these women who are forced into a fucking marriage. It's awful. I believe you should be able to divorce anyone for whatever fucking reason. If you truly do not want to be in a relationship with somebody, you don't have to. There's no circumstance where you are obligated to remain in a relationship with somebody. Unless we're talking about like your child. Like obviously you kind of have to stay in your kid's life. But
or like there's stuff like where I do believe people are obligated to stay with their terminally ill partners. This is mostly a male issue where men, like, their wife has cancer and men are like, ugh, you look ugly without hair. Bye. I think that
I truly believe
you're morally obligated to stick around. But
I truly believe that anybody who would leave their woman, why did I say their woman, their wife, if anyone who would leave their significant other over something stupid like that, like, it's going to be overall better in the long run.
Yeah.
But then again, if you're terminally ill,
is true.
If you're terminally ill, then like, Jesus Christ, I can't even imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't believe fucking, like, you saw this, actually never mind. I was gonna spoil Breaking Bad. I'm not gonna do that. This is a major theme in like season 2 and 3 of Breaking Bad.
Okay, I've watched a lot of season 2 and 3, but Skylar did nothing wrong.
No, she did absolutely nothing wrong. She did not cheat on him. She had every right for him to be away from her.
Uh-huh.
I think she's a little bit judgmental. You know, well, what I'm saying is she comes off as a very conservative woman who has stronger reactions to like certain things. Her reaction to marijuana, for example. Like she was like devastated. Yeah. She was like devastated that Walt was like the very thought of Walt smoking marijuana, like obviously. But at the end of the day, she had every right to completely eject Walt from her life. When earlier on, like before she knew like the very explicit details of what he did, I think it was kind of wrong of her to withhold her children from seeing their father, because he didn't present any kind of confliction with his desire to take care of his kids, his ability and desire to take care of and love his children. I think he would have been capable of being a good father. So, but I also completely understand her fear and hesitance.
I mean, there were also fucking cartel dudes lurking around.
Yeah, but she didn't
murder his family.
What I'm saying is that she didn't know that.
She didn't know that.
Yeah.
But like just lying to your partner continuously and really making shit look like you're cheating on them and just not explaining shit, that's not okay. You have every fucking right to leave someone over that and go and have sex with someone else. Just because 100%. That other person still isn't over you, that doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Every once in a while, I see a Breaking Bad fan unironically hate Skylar, and it's...
Well, I think Breaking Bad gives you...
Are you fucking kidding me?
I think Breaking Bad gives you good reasons to hate every single character in that show.
Yes.
But if you were on the side of Walt against Skylar... Dude, and people... It seems like the Breaking Bad fandom, it like uncritically thinks Hank is like a great guy and like the hero of the show. Hank is a piece of shit. Holy crap.
Yeah.
I literally saw Xanderhall, a streamer who I have a very large amount of respect for, a leftist streamer, say that like he was like, yeah, ACAB and all, but Hank is definitely on like the lower end of ACAB. I'm like, what are you talking about? Hank, every possible criticism you could have for American police applies to Hank like 10 times more than the average cop. He is the most corrupt, most racist, most bourgeois interest upholding cop you will ever come across in fiction.
Yeah.
I'm
he's
glad.
Just a guy. He's just a silly guy. He's just a little dude, you know?
He's funny.
Yeah.
No, don't get me wrong. I think he's probably better than most of the characters in the show. But he's a terrible
really
person.
Low bar.
It's a very, very low bar. Like, I don't deny his humanity. Like, seeing him die, it was like sad. Like, he definitely has good and bad. But like at the same time, we're gonna pretend. Are we really gonna delude ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
Yeah.
But we could do a whole episode. We could do a whole episode of feminist analysis of Breaking Bad.
We can, once I finish Breaking Bad, I'm in like season 4 or something. Once I finish it, we can do a Breaking Bad episode.
I'm rewatching it for the 3rd time right now with my brother.
Wow.
I love it so much. It's like the best show ever. It's perfect. It's perfect art. There's not a moment of that show that I don't adore. And I don't think there are, like, people are like, oh yeah, it gets kind of slow with some... No, it doesn't. Every line of dialogue, every eye contact, every moment of eye contact made in that show is like so fucking perfect and tasteful. Any clarity, ambiguity, really everything. There's the perfect balance of everything that art needs. And I don't care that Vince Gilligan is probably a conservative.
Wait, no, how would you... okay, we're getting completely sidetracked talking about Breaking Bad, but the whole fucking cancer treatment thing, the whole motivation of Walt turning to making meth, that is objectively a left-leaning take.
There are left-leaning and right-leaning like takes presented in Breaking Bad, but the thing is, I think it reflects reality so well that it's difficult to discern a political message from it.
Yes. Anyway, second wave feminism, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, fucking legal gender equality.
Marital rape.
Yes.
It was literally legal to rape your wife until the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible, man.
Women able to have bank accounts, all this good shit, can't discriminate on someone based on their gender.
Well, that got taken away recently.
Yeah. Say what you will about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She's wasn't as left-leaning as I'd like, but she was really just a fucking force to be reckoned with, as a lawyer and eventually as a judge. Really a great woman who I believe deserves to be remembered fondly.
I would say that about a lot of historical figures, the exact same thing you did. Yeah, second wave feminism, a lot of shit. There was a lot of actually I'll talk about that later. I have a divisive topics section. Third wave feminism. Third wave feminism essentially was just the introduction of more like systemic analysis. People realizing that a lot of people telling women to shut the fuck up because like you can vote now. You can it's been a while since you it's been written in your oppression has been written in legislation. But women are still suffering to this day. And people realized this from third wave feminism, the 90s to the 2000s. So yeah, it was just a more like people were engaging in a lot more nuanced deconstruction of the patriarchy on a social level. And there was also a big uprising of like criticism of the treatment of women in the workplace and just general inequality between men and women in the workplace.
Have you seen Mad Men?
No, I haven't.
Very good show, very worth watching. Talks a lot about inequality between men and women in the workplace. Has great scenes. Really, really brilliant show.
Yeah. I believe you. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot else to say about third wave feminism. It seemed like pretty, I don't know, there was riot girls and shit that happened.
There is like the whole scum manifesto thing, where it's like actually men are inferior on a biological level and must be enslaved.
That started in second wave feminism.
That's older, but
a lot of there's a lot of like male hatred, like stuff that would later go on to influence the TERF movement in the exclusion of trans women from feminism. Really, I have a lot planned to talk about that.
It's a lot of bioessentialism.
Yes,
and
exactly.
I won't lie. I see where they're coming from. There's just a lot of shit where for a very, very long time, women being taken advantage of sexually was just an okay thing. And abuse was just an okay thing. And I can see why these people went, okay, I think that there's just something wrong with men. Clearly there's a disconnect where they're just lacking in empathy for all of this suffering that we're going through. And I swing violently between being a misogynist and being a misandrist. I think the conclusion to come to is that yeah. No, it's not.
That's what non-binary means. It means you hate men and women.
Yes.
You were like, sure. Fuck all of these people.
And like I'll go through periods where I'll look at just what people talk about online. This is a good example. Just yesterday, I I was talking with people about porn addiction in men and how much of a terrible issue that is. And there were men who were like genuinely defending like family porn. And
ew.
yeah, and just the fact that you can't look on any porn site without being fucking bombarded with like stepsister, stepmom, even like explicit like, oh, mom, sister porn.
Yeah, that and also, or just like literal rape fetish. Like,
yes. And it just makes me, the fact that it is so widespread, so many people watch this shit. And it's like half of shit, if we're being honest, it's like half of the shit that's on Pornhub. It is fucking rampant.
Yeah, that's why I don't go on that website. I don't understand
either.
How I don't understand.
Why I don't.
I don't understand how people can like find content on that website. It is so terrible. It is like a cesspool of absolute degeneracy. It perfectly mirrors what is wrong with our society. I don't understand how it's like the most popular site in the world.
Yeah. I mean, I struggle to look at porn sites in general because it's either it's family shit or it's borderline pedophilic shit.
Barely legal goddess takes BBC.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just it's sickening, all of it. And I fucking understand the people who are like, you know what? Fuck everyone who watches this, which is most men, unfortunately. Most young men have porn addictions. It's not their fault.
I don't
they
agree
were
that
exposed
most
to this
young
content.
men have porn addictions. I think there's a difference between porn addiction and watching a lot of porn. And I don't think watching a lot of porn makes you addicted. And I don't think there's anything wrong with watching a lot of porn as long as it's not the insane shit, which is what most people watch. So
yeah. And like, I believe that there are absolutely healthy ways to engage with pornography, with erotica.
Yeah, it's called OnlyFans Girls.
Literally, unironically, yes. But that's rather than OnlyFans shit like that, being like a liberation of an individual sex worker. It's turned into like the people who buy OnlyFans do it because they crave personal connection, because they're lonely. Because they want to do the chat function.
Exploitation of that.
Yeah. And it's fucking miserable. And it feels like there's no middle ground with a lot of people a lot of the time.
Can I talk about my like 7-hour sex work career?
Yes.
To make a very long story short, I was offered money to basically just text people for like a couple minutes. Or like 20, 30 minutes. And I just was painted a very clear, explicit picture of the type of lonely men that pay girls for like just chats. And I literally couldn't stomach it because I felt so bad for these people and I felt like I was exploiting them. I felt that I don't think they just like I don't think humans are entitled to like sex and whatnot. Like that's something you have to earn. It's an opportunity that presents itself in your life. It's not something that like it's not a given thing. But the very clear lack of human connection that these people experience and turn to like online sex workers for, it was absolutely depressing. And I literally like teared up just like seeing that. It was so fucking sad. And I don't understand how OnlyFans girls can just like set up what is probably a chat bot, as their automated responses and just watch the money pile up. I could never.
That is terribly unethical. That's
horrible. It's horrible. It's disgusting.
See, this is why I think in sex education in schools, pornography should be talked about because it's fucking everywhere. It's impossible to avoid on the internet. Kids are being exposed to softcore porn in mobile games. And kids are being groomed from young ages to have porn addictions and to engage in unhealthy ways with erotica. And we need to teach people how to engage with it in a healthy way. Teach people what it is. And it's just it's fucking miserable. And like not even just engaging with a lot of pornography in an unhealthy way, but like real porn addictions in young men. It really is a huge number of people that are really struggling and aren't getting the resources that they need. I'm not going to say that I just like
psychology just laughs off porn addiction. Like no one in psychology is like actually trying to do research on this.
Yeah. And it's horrifying. Yeah. Anyway, that's kind of sidetracked.
A whole nother
way
episode
sidetracked
as
again.
Well. Yeah. Fourth wave feminism, modernization.
That's us.
It's us. It's basically a modernization of third wave feminism. We continued the analysis and started making infographics and posted them on Instagram. I firmly identify with the causes, goals, beliefs, ideology of fourth wave feminism. I just don't think most people who are fourth wave feminists know what the fuck they're talking about. I think most people, there's this like fake wokeness, this what I like to call the woke mind virus. It's just people bitching at each other.
Yeah.
And just like, just screaming and yelling constantly, and with just buzzwords, weaponizing buzzwords they saw in the infographics. But big things for fourth wave feminism. Me Too. Women, first they wanted to vote, then they wanted to work, and now they want to not get raped. How fucking audacious. How how selfish of these
thing.
fourth wave I was all about feminism until they wanted to stop getting raped and sexually assaulted by their superiors in the workplace. Or anybody. Is something somebody would say, somebody who's not me. I am big supporter of the Me Too movement. I 100% believe in the total cancellation of famous people who have engaged in sexual assault. I'm totally comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm.
The Me Too movement. Go on.
I do think that a lot of people aren't engaging with it. They aren't engaging with it in a way that is sustainable. I would love to live in a world where whenever someone says, I was raped, we can completely take them at their word. Unfortunately, predatory people are predatory, and they're going to see an opportunity there to, if I can say anything and people are going to believe me without any questioning whatsoever, then I can just wield this power to ruin the life of anyone that I want to. And it absolutely is abused.
100%, yeah.
And I think that we need to stop being so black and white about things. Start thinking critically. Of course, whenever someone says, I was raped, I was sexually assaulted, they need to be supported and protected. But I do also think that this doesn't necessarily mean that whoever is being accused needs to just immediately be sent to the firing squad. Which is what some people kind of unironically are advocating for.
When people make false, and this is not to say that a legitimate victim would never have this mindset or, engage in this kind of behavior. But oftentimes with a false allegation, like the clear motivation is to take somebody down, and they don't want to be emotionally supported. They don't want their struggle to be legitimized. They just want the other person to be brought down. And that's oftentimes a very clearly identifiable thing. But at the same time, nobody's like, there's no there's no fully consistent behavior, and it's just really fucking sad that like a lot of times we'll never know.
But it is really, really important to emphasize that even if we can never know, even if there is absolutely no proof, this person still needs to be protected. They still need to be shielded from whoever they are accusing.
Absolutely. If you would, even if you're fucking lying, right? And in that case, I have no sympathy for what you're doing. I have no sympathy for you lying, right? But in the case that you are making a false rape allegation, I think you still have a right to be protected from whoever you felt the need to lie about.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Me Too movement has, I don't know, and this is kind of a fucked up reality, but I would rather, like, I think if two people are persecuted for like sexual assault and only one of them actually did it, that might be better than both of them getting away with it. It's hard to say.
Yeah. It's
particularly with famous people. But I don't fucking know, man. It's such a complicated topic.
Yeah. It is fraught. It needs to be, there is no universal rule. This is exactly, in one sentence, I can describe exactly what you do when someone says that they've been raped. It is very case by case. Nevertheless, still, it always deserves to be taken seriously at some level. You'll hear Andrew Tate talking about how he moved to Romania to escape Me Too. And we talked about this in our Manosphere episode, but the reality of that is that the Romanian police are extremely corrupt, and like there are so many probes and investigations into the way that they function because they're famous for just turning women away when they come to the police department and say, "Help me, I've been raped." And there are stories of women going from police department to police department over miles, and being turned away from every single one of them, because it's just not taken seriously. And that is the reality of the anti Me Too people. That is their utopia, where women can go into the police department having just been raped, having this be provable right then and there if they have a medical evaluation, and having them being turned away. That's the world that Andrew Tate wants to live in.
It's the world that he did live in. It's the world that he moved to.
And you know, if the haters from the last episode are here, I really, really encourage you to do research into the goings-on of the Romanian police department and all of the corruption, and the just systemically, habitually not taking sexual assault seriously. It is horrifying. Yeah.
But yeah, that was the history of feminism. Very a bastardized, very simplified version of it. But I want to talk about our personal relationships with feminism. And I will first start by asking the question, Felonious Ferris, are you a feminist?
Absolutely, Demigloom. I am a feminist. I believe I can see the utility in just dividing labor between sexes if it was 100, 200, 300 years ago. But still, having a woman have no autonomy, no ability to get away and be independent if she is abused, that's obviously bad. We don't want that. We don't want women to be forced to stay with someone who beats the shit out of them. But still, on the other side, it's not like the patriarchy, it's not like men don't suffer from it. It's a lot of, like, stoicism is, that philosophy is ingrained into it. Men cannot show emotions, and just everything needs to be repressed. And if a man ends up killing himself because all of that emotion is repressed, well, you know, that's just the organism of our society taking care of itself, and, you know, taking the bad mutated cells out. And that's horrifying. There are so many people who I've engaged with who genuinely believe that, who believe that that male suicide is just a good thing. It is just the organism of our society purging cancer. Things along those lines. And it's not fucking true. Stoicism, believe it or not, teaching someone to bottle up all of their emotions all of the time and never ask for any help, causes a lot of issues. You see a lot of men who will go for very long periods without showing any emotion, and then at the smallest thing, they'll completely snap and even become violent and abusive. And it's not safe, it's not sustainable, it causes suicide very directly.
Arguably responsible for violence, like murder,
oh, yeah.
and gang violence and terrorism. A lot of other things. Not even just for the men themselves.
Yes. And stoicism as an entire philosophy is so fucking bullshit. And I hate it. And I hate that it's having a resurgence. It is just the exact opposite direction of where we need to be going. You know, therapy, whatever people say, you're not going to be less attractive to women if you go to therapy, if you show some emotional vulnerability. I do believe that there are some women who are tougher on men than even sometimes other men are.
Yeah,
primarily,
you don't want
it's
those
men
women
being tough on other men.
You want nothing to do with those women, trust me.
Anyway, like, yeah, they aren't worth it. They are not worth your mental health. They are not worth your life in the end. So fucking shrug your shoulders and move on if you can't cry in front of them. It's just, and it's not like this is every woman. Most, at least of my generation, all of the women I know who date men, almost, like, it's like a fantasy for them to be able to comfort a man while he's crying. That kind of thing. It's like, it's just this fantasy, and they're so terrified of being judged in this way, and it is so fucking heartbreaking, and I do not blame them. And I believe that there needs to be more empathy and more outreach about it, rather than just dismissal as being irrational. At the end of the day, I do believe that it's irrational, but that doesn't mean that those feelings, that suffering, and those mental barriers aren't real, and it doesn't mean that they don't need help to overcome them.
Yeah, 100%. I think, well, as a socialist, as a socialist, and with everything, I can break this down into a class thing. It's a very bourgeois mentality to not want a man who is vulnerable and shows emotions. It's this, like, business, like, viewing humans as like a game, like a pawn in a game mentality.
You're only valuable based on what you can do for me. That kind of mindset. Exactly.
That's the mindset.
It's fucking cancerous.
So my advice, do not date bourgeois women or women who have been corrupted by the bourgeois. Greatest mistake of my life. Multiple women in my life who I have been romantically involved with have been corrupted by the bourgeois, in spite of some, on the surface level, like, visible class consciousness. Yeah, I think there are a lot of working class people who hold their like ideal partner to a bourgeois standard because they've been corrupted by the bourgeois and have this idea of what they want to be that they aren't, and count on their significant other to provide them and lift them, bring them up to this bourgeois state of being. I'm getting a little bit personal right now. But yeah, I blame it on class. I blame it on class relations. But I also blame the majority of men's or women's issues on class relations as well. But at the end of the day, a lot of it does have to do with humanity itself, humanity's feelings about each other. Hey, Demigloom, are you a feminist? Yes, I am. I am a feminist. And contrary to popular belief, I've been a feminist my entire life. I was raised feminist. I was taught the values of feminism. I agreed with the values of feminism. And not once in my life was I an anti-feminist or against feminism. Now, did I hang out with a lot of people who were anti-feminist outspokenly? Yeah. Did I associate with a lot of people, a lot of music, a lot of YouTube videos that were anti-feminist and bordering on misogynistic? Yeah. I had edgy periods of my life where I just surrounded myself with edginess and degeneracy. But at the end of the day, I've always been a very compassionate person and always put my foot down when there was an issue of misogyny that I was able to understand. I attribute any, like, there's definitely times where I used to just fucking hang out with a bunch of incels and be like, yeah, you guys are terrible people, but whatever. But I don't associate with anyone who's a misogynist anymore at this point, unless it's like a very openly critical relationship. Like my relationship with my friend, and I say friend reluctantly because the word friend has implications of endorsement that don't apply here, but like my friend Kathy, who is a transphobic, Catholic, anti-Semitic, or formerly anti-Semitic person, like, I will have a friendly conversation with her, I will play a video game with her, and I will enjoy her company, and I will call her my friend. I will hope she has a nice day when she gets off of my call. I felt bad for her when her boyfriend broke up with her. I'm there. I'm emotionally invested in her, and I care about her. But I do not agree with a lot of the things she has to say, and I find them absolutely morally repugnant, and I will call her a terrible person to her face. And that's just a relationship that I've come to value in life. I think it's a beautiful thing, personally. I don't think people are obligated to have those relationships, especially if you're of an oppressed demographic and this person is advocating for your oppression and you don't want to make eye contact with them. I find that to be a completely reasonable boundary. But I also think that reaching your hand out for these people is undeniably can be a good thing to do.
I went to the funeral a year or so ago, the funeral of a transphobe, and I cried at his funeral. He was my one of my dad's friends, who my dad was friends with him despite him being like a Trump supporter and everything. They'd go fishing together and bond over that. And I think that it can be exhausting at times to be around someone like that who's just so many of their views you just find repulsive.
Yeah, and that's a burden that no one should be forced to deal with.
But it's, you'll the closer you get with someone, the more you'll find a value about them. Like this guy, I'd go fishing with him, and he'd complain for a while about how jazz is all awful music, but then he would talk about how much he loves he loves show tunes and ABBA. Just like these hilarious quirks of this guy who I disagree with most on most like moral philosophical type things. But yeah,
Are you anti-jazz? Are you agreeing with that?
No, I like jazz. Okay. I think that him being so anti-jazz is probably because he was fucking racist.
Yeah, being anti-jazz is like one of the biggest red flags, because that means like your racism like predates modern racism. You have like that's like old school racism, is hating jazz.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Jazz is like objectively, like jazz collectively is like objectively like some of the purest, like most beautiful music that has ever been created.
Mm-hmm.
Like people, I'm gonna be real with you. People who absolutely hate rap music and can't listen to any of it, I get it. I totally get that. I totally understand people who can't stand rap music. There are a lot of problems with like most rap music out there, which we could probably do an episode about and get canceled for.
Yes.
But
yes. And
I'm saying this, I literally make rap music. I don't like to say I'm a rapper because that has a lot of like that just sounds funny. Like I'm not it just doesn't sound right, but like I do rap. I really appreciate the art. It is poetry in my opinion. It is the like it's like an evolution of poetry. Like it's a new artistic medium that has transcended our understanding of poetry, and it's an amazing fucking thing. And there's so much great stuff out there that I have so much respect for. But usually when you turn on Z104 and hear somebody, mumbling some jargon over like trap drums, usually not very good.
Yeah.
Usually not great.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Anyways.
Kind of sidetracked. I want to talk about equal rights, equal fights.
Oh shit. Because that has a whole new twist to it now that like trans women want to be MMA fighters.
Yeah.
Like because it was originally a very bioessentialist thing, but now we can't be bioessentialist.
My main feeling about it is that it was never wrong for a man to hit a woman because he's a man and she's a woman. It was wrong because someone is using their physical strength they're leveraging their physical strength over someone who does not have the physical strength needed to defend themselves. And like the same way that I believe it would be morally wrong for me to punt a 5-year-old. That is morally wrong because I am using physical force against someone who does not have the strength to defend themselves effectively. That is the issue. I do think that there's different shit when it comes to like combat sports. I believe like if someone genuinely challenges someone else to a sparring match, it would be a sign of disrespect to hold back on the basis of your perceptions of their physical strength, their skill, or your assumptions based on their gender. And it's people, it's not like women can't say, oh no, I don't want to fight this trans woman. They're fully capable of opting out. That is fine.
I'm gonna be real with you. I 100% have no problem with women in like MMA or boxing or whatever being like, yeah, that's like this woman has the physical strength of a man and I don't want to fight them.
Yeah.
The problem is when you're in like a competitive league and you're climbing to the top of a hierarchy that is based on a set of like rules and pretexts that you being the anomaly kind of violate. I would say the same thing if there was like a guy with like 4 arms in like WWE or some shit. like
just
like fucking Goro. Like Goro from Mortal Kombat.
Machamp.
Yeah, like a Machamp. Like personally, with the trans women in sports thing, all this has led me to believe is that we we have been categorizing it wrong from the beginning. But we're such traditionalists that we're not going to just change the way we organized football, right? Nobody's going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a matter of how we fairly integrate or don't integrate trans people. Within the current,
I will say, as a former high level athlete, I went to the Junior Olympics, all that stuff, and I will say, some people will claim that the only reason that sports is segregated between men and women is because men are afraid of being shown up by women. And, you know, I don't know if someone said something like that 80 years ago, but it's true that people who are assigned male at birth, who go through no hormone replacement therapy, no puberty blockers, things like that, are just going to naturally be stronger and have a build that is better for physical strength. Starting at a pretty young age. I mean, I remember going from being able to beat all of the boys to them slowly creeping up on me, and eventually there being absolutely no hope of me beating them. Just the physical strength gap got too wide pretty quickly. Like 9, 10, 11. Like, that gap widened a huge amount. And people have, I think that the fear that women are just going to be pushed out of sports is real, and I think that we need to show more concern for that. A lot of people treat it like it's black and white. I believe that if a trans woman does puberty blockers and then hormone replacement therapy, there is absolutely no reason that she shouldn't be allowed into women's sports. She has no competitive advantage. It's just anyone who says otherwise is completely bullshitting. There's even something to be said for trans women who didn't go on puberty blockers, who are just doing hormone replacement therapy, because your ability to put on muscle is highly dependent on testosterone levels. And if your testosterone levels are of a normal woman, your ability...
A
normal woman, Jesus Christ. A cisgender woman, your ability to put on muscle will be the same as that of a cisgender woman.
I mean, being on hormones is that can refer to like an entire spectrum of
Yes.
like someone's physical state of being, because there's so much to hormone replacement therapy. It's not just estrogen. Spoiler alert, guys. But yeah, I would agree with you generally.
I think that there's more room with many things. There's more room for nuance in these conversations, and people are not automatically transphobic for being suspicious of a trans woman who went through... Yeah, suspicious of the honor system, suspicious of trans women who went through male puberty, and people forget that a lot of the people who are opposed this have no fucking idea how gender-affirming care works, how hormone replacement therapy works, how puberty blockers work. They just think that literally any man can go in and be like, I'm a woman now, and just absolutely kill in women's sports. When that's I don't think anyone is advocating. No one thinks that's a good idea. I
disagree.
Nuance.
I think there are a lot of people that think that's a good idea. I wouldn't say nobody thinks that. I would say that that's not like what people are most people are actually pushing for. But like in the world that we,
I also think
in the world of Twitter, like where people get their politics from Twitter, yeah, there are a lot of people that believe that like anyone can say I'm a woman and go into women's sports, and that's a good thing.
See, that I like to think that we're better than that.
We're
that
better than that, but they're not.
More complex thought.
And when I say this, people are going to I know people are going to comment, that's really a straw man. I think you're really just like exposed to right-winged propaganda that'll convince you of the large minority being more representative than it. No, fuck you. I'm on Twitter. Okay? I know what the fucking Marxists are saying. I know what you guys are up to. You can't, oh, this is a right-wing straw man, your way out of this shit, okay? You need to take some fucking responsibility for your fucking brain-dead stupidity. I am a leftist. I am willing to admit that our demographic has problems like this.
Mm-hmm.
And you should too. You can't just say that it's all fucking straw mans, because it's not. There are really fucking stupid, brain-dead leftists. There are leftists who think that we should just kill, like, all people who have a higher net worth than your average Walmart employee. There are leftists who think that Randy Savage should be able to compete in, like, a women's boxing league. There are leftists, who believe in all this stupid shit. They are out there. Whether they're representative is not even, like, a question. They're obviously not representative of the majority of voters and whatnot. But the fact of the matter is that there is a huge group of people that are making us look really stupid, and they need to be held accountable.
Yes. And, no offense to trans people, to leftists, but I'm the only trans person I know who did and enjoyed sports.
I enjoyed sports.
It's not like...
Well, I wasn't in any leagues. I played sports casually, but a lot, and really enjoyed them.
Yeah. But it's not exactly like we're known for being the ones who are thrilled to run the mile in gym class.
I was thrilled to run the mile in gym class. Fuck you.
Most trans people I know were totally the types to want to sit out and that type of stuff, and just don't get the appeal of sports, and that's okay.
That's because of, like, I think that's mainly because of sports culture, and it's, like, pretty much intrinsic tie to toxic masculinity, particularly in America. There are places in the world where sports are all about, like, self-discipline and, like, really good shit. There's really, really good shit, like some anime sensei type shit going on.
Yes.
But not in America. In America, it's all like competitive. It's all what the anime protagonist thinks about before the sensei teaches him what it's all really about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that a lot of the issues with these leftists is they just don't understand the appeal of sports, so it doesn't matter to them that there might be a competitive advantage to worry about. Like, this is irrelevant to them.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's really fucking like, if you don't care about sports, if you don't understand the appeal whatsoever and have no desire to make any attempt to understand the appeal, I don't think it's super necessary to share your opinion, to be honest.
Yeah, and the same thing goes to the conservatives who would use the WNBA as a punchline to their joke, who are now all of a sudden, like, obsessed with protecting.
So concerned.
Can we we've been talking about this for a while. Can we talk about misandry, bioessentialism, and how that evolved into the TERF movement?
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say about the trans sports stuff before we switch? I just really want to introduce that topic at some point.
Not really.
Okay. Okay. What is a TERF? Let's talk about what a TERF is. What would you say a TERF is?
A trans exclusionary radical feminist. And I will say that pretty much any woman who is transphobic ends up getting called a TERF on the internet, which is wrong, and I don't like that.
Candace Owens is not a TERF.
Yeah, it is a very specific thing. It's a specific ideology where the bioessentialist transphobes on the right. It's that, but they hate men and believe that anyone who is assigned male at birth is immediately evil, and inferior to women.
It is.
That's rad fem.
It is a radical feminist. This is how I describe it. It is like a radical feminist who, obviously excludes trans women from their idea of womanhood. It is someone who is fighting for the liberation of women and has a bioessentialist definition of woman and a bioessentialist understanding of gendered conflicts. So essentially, rather than their enemy being the patriarchy, their enemy is men themselves. These are the people who would take the definition of feminism as femininism, over-related to femininity, the superiority of the natural femininity, which in their eyes is over-relating to the uterus. And basically, in a world where gender roles are being shattered, men are becoming women, they feel that trans women are essentially imposters that shouldn't be considered with their advocacy for liberation, and that they are a threat to women, and that essentially they're just, I don't know what else to say, that they're fake. And this has caused a lot of problems, and it has held back feminism by a couple decades.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that a lot of these people are abuse victims. A lot of them were raped, were abused by a man in their life, and because of that, just became intensely fearful of all men. It really is a heartbreaking thing to see at its core. It's all fear. How they have this understanding of I guess this bioessentialist understanding of the world, where men, it's almost like an original sin concept, where men are just inherently inferior because of their testosterone, making them, I guess, aggressive, stuff like that. They see no potential for someone like that to be good and safe to be around. So I understand why they're freaking the fuck out at trans women going into women's bathrooms, because they are terrified. They are traumatized people deeply.
So one would say you have sympathy for these humans.
Pity. I pity them. I think it's no way to live your life to be afraid of everyone of a certain demographic. I think that is almost always a bad thing. And part of, and I say this as an abused person, part of recovery, part of healing, is learning to stop being so afraid all the time. Learning that not everyone around you is out to get you, that not all men are just fucking psychotic rapists that are coming to get you. It's like basic PTSD recovery that they have not been through. And I pity them. I think it's a miserable life to lead.
And it is just that, like, psychologically, socially, in any field would tell you that is an important phase, an important stage, an important accomplishment in your recovery, is coming to terms with the biases, the way that this has influenced your thinking, the way that this has made you irrational, because trauma does make you irrational. It's made me irrational. I'm severely physically and emotionally abused, not sexually abused, just to make that very clear. And for a very long time, I personally myself exhibited a certain amount of misandry, more misanthropy. Is it misanthropy or misanthropy? How do you pronounce it? I type it all the time.
I don't know.
Yeah, I call it misanthropy. I exhibited a lot of misanthropy for a very long time. I convinced myself that, the abuse that I went through was just part of life, and because that's how it was presented to me. It was presented as a necessary part of an upbringing, and from that point, I was like, well, if this is part of life, I don't like life. If this is part of humanity, I don't like humanity. That's something you have to overcome. I mean, unless you literally don't want the world to be a better place, which unfortunately I think is what trauma does to a lot of people. It makes you nihilistic, it makes you hateful, it makes you bitter.
It crushes see this, your hope for a better future.
And you see this happen to any marginalized group of people or anybody with any amount of grievances whatsoever. This is just what happens into a large amount of people of any group that is oppressed or fucked with. I think the bioessentialism, particularly that came from second wave, third wave, and even first wave feminism, I think it comes from not even being able to fathom a world where men and women can get along, where men and women can coexist, where women are not the victims of a man's oppression, of a man's iron fist. And under that pretext, it makes sense. You can really understand where the transphobia comes from, where the true misandry comes from, which is what makes it sad. It comes from suffering. Hatred comes from grievances, legitimate grievances. What they attribute these grievances to may or may not be legitimate, but it is legitimate suffering nonetheless.
Yeah.
But I think this is ultimately a failure of like earlier feminists movements, like ability to reach across the aisle. The fact that it sort of became an echo chamber, and the fact that it affirms a lot of like what I can only call hatred and bigotry, or I guess ignorance, bias, insecurity even. It affirms all of that. And I think feminism hasn't done a good job of criticizing that sort of thought and deterring it. And I think the hatred of men didn't seem like a huge problem until like trans women came out, until trans women were released. No, until trans women were accounted for publicly by,
released
within
from
politics.
Containment.
Yeah, exactly. Once trans women became a huge thing, once trans women were finally being recognized as human beings, they kind of realized that all this like hypothetical shit around like surrounding men and their ideals towards men that they had in theory were not working out in practice. That's what we noticed with the TERF movement. And I can say, as a trans woman, I am offended by misandry. Raw hatred of men that is based in the biological realm is offensive to me, because that is hatred of me. And you see a lot of smug feminists, leftists, whatever, mainly who I would just describe as people I went to middle school and high school with. They will share the infograph about how trans women are women and all that, and then like simultaneously be like, oh my god, men are such fucking animals, the penis is a weapon, and they'll say all these things about men, right? Not saying, they say trans women are women, therefore surely they're not talking about me, right? But they'll say a lot of very bioessentialist things against men that offend me personally as a trans woman. And while I appreciate them considering me a woman in one context, it seems that they are attributing a lot of really negative traits to the natural masculinity that I was born with in other people, which is not okay. Hatred of men affects, first of all, men, but people aren't even going to pretend to care about men for 1 minute. You know, people just want men to suffer and kill themselves. What the fuck ever. The moment
Jesus
trans people are
Christ.
brought up, it's true. Is it not true?
I think some people feel that way. I think most people don't.
I don't think most
I
people
think-
feel that way. I think most people are pretty comfortable saying things that like I think most people are pretty comfortable turning a blind eye to like raw misandry and just hatred towards
Yes.
men because men are the oppressor historically.
Yes, I do think that that is true.
And this blind eye, you know, helps foster and cycle its way into the turf mindset. You know, a lot of people who were formerly in my life have, you know, like tried to treat me as a woman and whatnot, but at the end of the day, I could tell that they had this problem with me, and a lot of former classmates and people in my life, they reposted the infograph about how trans women are women, but when they come face to face with a fucking troon, big shoulders, deep voice,
Jesus fucking
to
Christ.
raw testosterone, I'm saying it how it is. When they come across the raw testosterone factory that is Demigloom, and then are asked to treat them as a woman, they get afraid and confused. I think a lot of AFAB, assigned female at birth folks, the AFabulous community, are in theory all about this trans women are women thing, but they see someone like me who generously is very obviously assigned male at birth, more realistically is a man in every form of the word from this person's perspective. And they get scared because they are intimidated and afraid of men. And this intimidation and fear that men bring is something that I'm bringing as a trans woman towards people. And it is, I 100% believe that more women than they would like to admit feel threatened by trans women, or more AFAB people feel threatened by trans.
Absolutely.
I think if I were to walk into a women's restroom, most people would be absolutely horrified by my presence, like 100%. And obviously that's not right. I don't think that's cool. I don't think people should be afraid of that, but that is the case. And that is something we have to acknowledge when we talk about the circumstances that lead to these ideologies, you know, prospering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's all really sad, honestly. And I'm not sure what the solution is, something that's fair to everyone. Because I don't think that it's a good idea for us to just brute force all trans women are now in women's bathrooms, even though there are some women who are like really deeply afraid, because that fear is real. It's also not fair to send trans women into men's restrooms when going into a men's restroom as a trans woman is dangerous for them for the same reasons that it's dangerous for cis women. Same with men's prisons. That is dangerous for them.
Yeah, but nobody cares about trans women, so it's fine.
It is fraught. It is fraught. And I think that over time we're going to make more and more progress. But it's going to take time.
I think it's going to take a very long time. I think the majority of people on this planet are incapable of even deluding themselves or pretending that they see me as anything less than a man or anything more than a man, anything other than a man. At the end of the day, this bioessentialist understanding of gender is what I believe all cis people have for the most part, unless maybe I think there are cis people who like went to our high school, right? Like people who are absolutely surrounded by loony troonies for a very long time that can truly see beyond the dead giveaways and the natural masculinity of someone like me. But with those few exceptions aside, I don't have any hope that I will live to see a day where I am treated as a woman or really that I am a woman anywhere outside of my own head.
Well,
And
we just talked about how there are people alive today who were there for the era where men would go work 14 hours at a factory and come home and beat their wives about it, and there was nothing that their wife could do to stop them, to liberate themselves, and how completely that is transformed over the course of people's lifetimes. So I wouldn't
think about all the
I wouldn't
people
completely lose hope.
and think about all the people who didn't live very long during those time periods.
Yes, this is true. That's part of the saddest part of social movements like that. This is that there are a lot of people who will not survive to the point of being able to see the world, see a world that treats them like they really deserve, treats them kindly and with respect. I'm crossing my fingers that you'll stick around for a while. Until you can see it. I have faith that in the next 100 years it'll happen. But
you can call this like white liberal shit. You can call this like you could attribute this to like emotional immaturity or whatever, but like I have found myself just like the more and more I read about people like civil rights activists, women's rights activists, and just people who like never lived to see today. And also the fact that their visions were like truly to this day are not met. Like the simultaneous fact that they never got to see the amazing progress that has been made, nor is the real progress actually nor has the real progress actually been made, has like actually brought me to tears. When I just think about how cruel the world is to just like murder somebody like Malcolm X on like over stupid shit. It's such a cold reality. It's such a cold reality that like change is punished. That's what I'm trying to get at. How punished change is, and how it's constantly going against the grain. And yeah, I don't know, dude.
I mean, we lost an entire generation just about of gay men to AIDS because the government refused to do anything about it because it was a homosexual disease. I have the privilege to know some gay men in their 50s. The extremely rare gay men who are in their 50s and older.
And out and not waiting for their parents to die to come out.
And it is fucking gut-wrenching to remember the number of people who died before they could see a world where they could marry the person that they loved. It's really, I'm tearing up thinking about it right now. But yeah, there's so many trans women also, trans people in general who died from the AIDS epidemic, from other things, before they were able to see the world as it is now. And obviously things are still very far from ideal, but
trans women are the trans women are dying right now.
Yes.
And trans people I want to sincerely apologize for making this all about trans women, by the way, this entire fucking rant, because this all applies to, aside from a couple like specific examples that I've laid out, this all applies to non-binary people, anyone, trans men, non-binary people, all gender non-conforming people, particularly those who identify as transgender. This all applies. This is not just about me.
The reaction to trans women is more violent and aggressive than it is to people who are assigned female at birth, because people who are assigned male at birth are seen as a threat, and people who are assigned female at birth aren't taken seriously. And that is the fact.
I'm not even talking about like the TERF shit right now, just like the general like disconsideration. People are rightfully so acknowledging and understanding like the differences in experience between trans men and trans women. And I find myself guilty of this, at least in the less than distant past, maybe not the near past, but kind of downplaying the struggles and suffering of like trans masc people in particular, or the AFAB trans people, because it seems so bad for trans women that like part of me at certain times felt like there's never a point where I would consider myself like invalidating trans masc suffering. But there are certainly times where I felt like I had pushed it to the side to like try to zero in on the trans women shit, because that felt like more of a priority to me. In reality, it was more so that I'm just living it every fucking day, because I get harassed every single day at work. I get, it's just, I am a constant victim of transphobia, and I don't care what any fucking person says. Yeah, I'm privileged. I have privilege. I'm a very privileged person. I'm not living through the fucking AIDS epidemic. I am white and middle class. Like, there are a lot of privileges that I have, and I am willing to acknowledge that. But I don't want anyone to fucking tell me that I'm not a victim of transphobia on a daily basis, because I absolutely am. And I don't care what anybody says. Yes, I am playing the victim because I am a fucking victim.
And it's true that it is, like, I don't think that we need to sit here and insist that there is no difference between the suffering of trans women, trans femmes versus trans mascs, AFAB trans people, because it is true, just objectively, that people are, like, it is just more dangerous for you to exist visibly in public than it is for me. I can wear my pronoun bracelet and my pins that have the non-binary snake pin that you got me, and the charm on my cane, and no one's gonna bat an eye. No one gives a shit. No one sees me as a threat. No one's afraid of me.
I think you get some eye rolls. Hey, don't be too hard on yourself. I'm sure there are plenty of people that think you're pathetic and hate you.
Oh yeah, sure.
One of the funniest things, my coworker, I was talking about passing with my coworker who is also trans, and I was just like, yeah, like everybody, like I'm just a guy, like in the eyes of pretty much everybody. And then they were like, hey, don't be so hard on yourself. I'm sure you confuse a lot of people.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you do.
Sometimes,
I did
very
one
rarely.
time. I did one time. Someone said to me, this was over the internet, but it still made me feel warm inside. Someone said, I can't tell if you're a boy or a girl, but either way, you're hot as fuck. And that, it doesn't get better than that, folks. Yep, can die happy.
Little kids have sometimes asked me if I was a boy or a girl. This is okay. I'm gonna tell you the worst feeling on earth. Okay, I'm about to tell you like the most human suffering that someone can experience in like a 30-second period of time. Someone will see me from like behind, right, or just like a distance, and they'll say, excuse me, ma'am. Mainly just old people who see like vaguely long hair, and just that long hair equals woman. And then they'll be like, excuse me, ma'am. And then I'll like turn my head, and then they'll like make eye contact with me. And then they'll say, oh my God, I am so sorry. And I'll be like, no, it's fine. They're like, no, I really mean it. I'm so sorry. I mean, to even, I promise you, man, there's nothing about you, you're the most masculine man I've laid my eyes upon, and I am just a complete idiot for even thinking for a moment that you are a woman. You are nothing like a woman, and I want you to know that. You are the most masculine man I've laid my eyes upon. Nothing you could ever do would convince me otherwise.
They have to be doing that on purpose. That has to be purposeful.
No,
They have to know.
I just made up that whole rant. That's what I imagine them saying in their head. They'll just do like the "I'm so sorry" thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's all like trailer park women who probably have never made eye contact with a trans person knowingly before, and it's all done very politely. And this is the worst thing. I'm going to tell you right now. Transphobic people who like know that I'm a trans woman and say things to pick on me for being trans, I don't really care a whole lot. What I really hate is masculine affirmation, positive masculine affirmation. When people will just casually say things like, "Yeah, you're a big intimidating guy," or like, "You're really strong."
Mm-hmm.
One time before I was out to everyone except my family, my brother insultingly was like, "You look like a woman," because of my haircut. And my mom was like, "A pretty ugly woman, Jesus." Statements like that have caused what I can only describe as irreversible like psychological damage that can never, because those statements can never be taken back, because those were truly honest statements intended to be positive. Those are statements that cannot be taken back. Transphobic statements, like blatantly transphobic statements like "you'll never be a woman," yeah, don't really mean a whole lot to me, because it's clearly the intention. It's clearly the statement is derived from a desire to hurt me. When someone observes a very basic reality that contradicts my desire and my understanding of myself in a way that's intended to be positive, is probably the worst thing that can happen to me.
There's a lot of people who are just oblivious to trans issues. But then there's a lot of people who are very actively cruel and say things out of a desire to cause pain. And I don't know how to engage with those people in a positive way, because it is just so, like, when you're at the point of like cheering on high suicide statistics, how am I supposed to engage with you? Is there any more feminism stuff that we want to talk about?
Yeah, there's probably a lot of feminism things that we didn't even touch on. I know you have some somewhere in your brain. I just don't know if you can pull them out on the spot.
I guess positive masculinity. A lot of people have this fixation on toxic masculinity, and people take that as masculinity equals toxicity. And I really don't think that's true.
No, it's not true at all.
No. For instance, Joel Miller from The Last of Us, HBO adaptation. I haven't played the games, I know, I'm so sorry. Obviously, deeply flawed, very morally gray at times, but I would say in general, that is an example of very positive masculinity. Being protective, using your strength to protect people who do not have the strength to protect themselves. That desire, that is extremely positive, and a really, really valuable masculine trait that I don't think is really encouraged enough. I mean, we see like our movie heroes who will swoop in and save the day, but that's more self-gratifying most of the time.
Yes.
Rather than being framed as like, I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. It's being framed as, I'm doing this and I'm the greatest person ever, and treat me like a god now.
Yeah. I think
but
there's go on.
Sorry, there's a lot of positive masculine traits that we don't talk about enough.
Self-discipline.
Yeah.
Honor,
and a lot of people
courage,
are
bravery.
Are absolutely allergic to validating men at all. But I think it's really important. I also think that whenever someone is going against the grain by doing the right thing, I think it's okay to acknowledge that and give them a pat on the back because they're doing something that is objectively very difficult and that is worth commending.
Oh,
But,
you're
yeah.
gonna applaud someone for doing the bare minimum.
Yes.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, we should applaud people for doing the bare minimum. Maybe not applaud, but like encouraging the bare minimum. Like, because when you say things like, "Oh, we're gonna applaud people," you're discouraging the bare minimum. You're making the bare minimum like you're belittling those who do the bare minimum. Why? Why? Like, why? This is another thing of the left's addiction to losing. Like, why do we just hate people who are sympathetic to us that are like not fully a member of our cult? Anyways, positive masculinity. I think positive masculinity is reinforced and taught to us kind of enough. Like, I don't think there's this a severe lack of positive masculinity being instilled in people. I think they just don't know how to define positive masculinity. And I'm of the belief that there is not a single character trait that is like inherently masculine or feminine, but rather that certain traits and like categories of character traits can be categorized as masculine or feminine based on their association with gender identities. But yeah, I think here's what I have to say about people who think toxic masculinity means all masculinity is toxic. And this is a model that applies to pretty much everything. So there is what the left thinks. There is what the right thinks the left thinks. And then there are also really stupid people on the left who do think what the right thinks the left thinks. So the left believes that toxic masculinity is, that masculinity can manifest in toxicity, that masculinity can influence toxicity, and that there is a breed of masculinity that is toxic. The right thinks, the left thinks, all masculinity is toxic. And for some reason, there are some people on the left who are fucking stupid enough to think that all masculinity is toxic and believe what the right thinks they believe. I'm guilty of believing in some things that the right thinks the left believes. Like they say, like they want to make everyone gay, right? They're like, oh, the left wants to make everyone gay. Like, no, we don't want to make everyone gay. We just think that people who are born with the gay gene have a right to cope with that. Like, that's basically fucking gay messaging. Christ. Isn't this true, though? Am I saying anything wrong? Like
You're
liberals,
absolutely right.
Because liberals like lied. Liberals literally lied and said there was a gay gene for so long, and they were like, they can't help being disgusting. Was basically they basically said that in nicer words. They're like, well, they can't control it. They're like they never once did they try to argue that maybe homosexuality wasn't disgusting. It was just like, oh, they can't control it, so it's not okay for you to, they still catastrophized it. They did like the autism speaks shit, and God, I'm gonna have to cut so much out. Holy shit, I'm unhinged tonight. Yeah, the liberals, like, fuck liberals. Fuck liberals. We're leftists. We're not liberals. We're not lib cucks.
Shit libs.
I am one step away from self-identifying as an empiricist, which is the most pretentious thing you can do. But I have come to the conclusion that humanity has become so detached from reality and that we are in an intellectual dark age, and that empiricism is no longer valued in political discourse. And we live in a world where we ought to emphasize empiricism. We ought to emphasize our faith in utility. Why? Why does that have to be emphasized? Why are people openly detached from reality? Why are people openly believing in what they want to believe? I don't fucking know, because people are stupid. Feminism is good. Do you have anything else you want to talk about feminism before we wrap things up?
No, I don't think so. I'm sure I'm gonna think of a bunch of stuff as soon as we are no longer recording, but it is what it is.
Squeebo wants to come on the next episode. Should we let them?
Aw, hell yeah!
Yeah, that's it. Felonious Ferris, where can our listeners find you?
Tumblr, TikTok, YouTube, Truth Social, Twitter even though I don't really use it. Yeah. I'm gonna go watch Pedro Pascal's entire portfolio of work. Yeah, where can we find you, Demigloom?
I'm considering getting a Tumblr now, because a trans masked coworker of mine told me to.
Oh fuck yeah!
They were pitching it to me, and I was like, looks pretty. It's a very beautiful kind of disgusting in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I will most likely be on there at some point. Whether or not I stick around is questionable. But the main place you can find me, I have another podcast called The Issue Crew that I host with a more diverse. It's a platform with a more diverse set of ideas than this one. I'll leave it at that. And it's edgy chaos. It's funny. It's a comedy podcast. Go listen to that. It's available on all podcast platforms. And also go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Demigloom, DEMIGLOOM. I have a couple very short, like funny video essays about politics, trans stuff. And I plan on making more. I'm currently almost done scripting a video called 10 Things You Should Never Say to a Trans Woman, which is, I think it's pretty good video. It's not like a Watch Mojo top 10. It's has more integrity than that. But anyways, I've been Demigloom.
And I've been Felonious Ferris.
Yeah.
Bye-bye!